Hey, crystal lovers, and welcome to another episode of Crystal Confab. Today, you just have three confabbers, myself, Nicholas Pearson, and Kyle Perez, and we are so excited to be discussing lepidolite today. So, hey, how are you gents doing?
Doing well. I'm glad we finally get to catch up, and I'm sure Adam is with us in spirit. He's being a little globetrotter right now, and I know I'm not alone following his Insta stories, drooling over crystals.
That's right. Kyle, how about you?
So jealous of what he's doing and living vicariously through his travels, absolutely. And so excited to dive into something that is quietly a bit scandalous, right?
A little bit, a little bit. So we're going to talk about why. So, Adam, we're thinking of you from afar. Hope you're having a great time. We'll be back with Adam next week. But for now, Nicholas is going to kick us off with a little better understanding of lepidolite question mark.
Yeah, so I want to start by saying that Lepidolite has been a trusted friend for me for a really long time. I got some inexpensive tumbled bits of it a really long time ago, and I've loved it ever since. It's gentle, it's soothing, it's serene, it is often very sparkly. And this piece here comes from the famous mining district in San Diego County out in California from not Paula proper or the Himalaya mine, but somewhere in that general area. We can find little bits of pink tourmaline inside and albite feldspar and other stuff because it is formed in what's called a pegmatite. So we're going to find a lot of this material in pegmatites, but we're not always going to find it in colors like this. I have some here that is golden. I have some here. I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up, but it is like lime green. I've got some that is pale pink, some that is a blue gray, and some that's just kind of silvery. And the challenge here is that lepidolite isn't really a mineral species, at least not anymore. The thing about science is as we keep analyzing stuff, we keep learning more things about the stuff we're analyzing. And lepidolite now refers to a very small subgroup in the mica family of two whole species, polylithionite and trilithionite. So they are two of the lithium bearing members of the mica family, but there's almost 60 different named species, or I'll say 60 different known species. Some of them haven't had names approved yet because we're still analyzing. And unfortunately, what we think of as one stone, lepidolite, loosely refers to a whole group of things. Because not only do we have our two lithium members of the trioctahedral mica group that we call lepidolite, we also sometimes get muscovite with a teeny tiny bit of lithium substituting for other stuff that gets called the same thing. And it is kind of a mess. And so because of that, if you go on to Mindat or look up a any other mineral database that is very current, you're not going to get a valid search result for lepidolite. So I think it's helpful to kind of contextualize what it is inside the parent family that is mica. Micas are really fun. We know them to be platy phyllosilicate minerals. So I'm sure we all know phyllodoe. It's thin sheets that are layered on top of one another. Phyllosilicates are the same kind of thing. They are sheets, almost like a network in 2D of little bits of silica with other things thrown in there. And the bonds within a single sheet are very, very strong. However, the bonds between one sheet and the next are very weak. We call this van der Waals bonding. And here is a chrome piece of mica from North Carolina. We could demonstrate this. I just won't tell one of my crystal besties that gave it to me, but I can peel little bits of it off just like that because the bonds between the molecules in that direction are so soft. And when it comes to our lithium bearing ones, they tend to be accumulated in areas that we call lithium pegmatites. So we're going to find these plutons and dikes and other intrusive formations of igneous rock in which this molten magma cools very, very slowly because it's insulated by the rock around it. And when this material is fairly rich in lithium, it is prone to creating our lithium members of the mica group. But they're also going to form alongside usually some pretty stunning gemstones, tourmalines, often in pinks and greens and combinations thereof, sometimes with brilliant blues. We're going to find creamy, white, pale, albite feldspars, real gemmy quartzes. Often it's going to be citrine and smoky quartz. Um, and then, of course, our lithium minerals, among other things. And because of this environment in which they're nurtured underground and grow so slowly, there is this kind of nurturing quality that they bring to the fore. I've always loved our intrusive rocks as opposed to extrusive ones. Think rhyolite and obsidian, which form by more eruptive means, quite literally. They cool so slowly over time when they are insulated by the Earth's crust that it allows for really big blocks of crystals to form. So you're going to get some of the best crystal sizes of any igneous rock inside these kind of plutonic pegmatites. And we've got some amazing lithium bearing micas in there. So whether they're coming from California, or here is one from Scotland with some quartz. It's not much to look at, but it is special to me because of where it comes from. I've got a carving from Zimbabwe with my little grandmother moon face. This was a gift from a friend. And I really love that when we take a look at the chemistry and structure of micas, it gives us some clues about what lepidolite and all of its nearly 60 family members do. We have this ability to deform mica crystals plastically and even elastically. They will snap back if we don't, peel too hard. And it gives kind of a quality of flexibility, of grace that they have. They allow us to learn how to bend without breaking. They give us, we'll say, flexible boundaries when we need them. Like we got to adapt in the moment and realize our perfect vision of stuff doesn't usually work out because life is messy. And what I love about the Mica group is they give us this sense of flexibility to adapt in the moment. And then we've got that beautiful clarity that comes from them as well. When we peel off one little flake, one little sheet, or in the case of lepidolite, one little scale, because the word lepidolite means scaly stone, in really compact forms like this, they almost look like fish scales, hence its name. When we isolate a single layer or a very small group of layers, they have this brilliant clarity. We can take this opaque green stone, take off one sheet, and it's crystal clear. So I find the Mica group, and especially lepidolite, wonderful for helping us approach life step by step, rather than the overwhelm we get from trying to deal with it all at once when things are noisy and loud and opaque, hard to see through. It lets us say, what if I just start from the surface? What if I just begin the first thing? My inbox is a mess. What if I just read the very first email that's in there? And then what if I write a reply? It helps us maybe not so much prioritize, but just start by making it smaller. And that ability to kind of surrender to the way things are is a really magical gift that lepidolite gives us.
So, Nicholas, I have to tell you, I feel like you're in my brain, right? With this, like, just do the first little bit, the first tiniest step of the big process. I think so many of us can use that. And of course, I was having so many like competing neurodivergent thoughts while you were speaking of things that I wanted to bring up. So, when you held up that beautiful sort of green mica and you peeled off that thin little piece, for those of you who are maybe listening rather than watching, it was completely translucent. I mean, you can see right through that. And it was just a small sample because, treasured stone for science. Had to peel a little bit off. But it reminded me that I think it was like in ancient Rome. Correct me if anybody knows this, but I'm pretty sure this is right. they used mica, large sheets of mica as window panes.
Yeah, as far as that, and more recently, because it's also fairly resistant to heat. It has a much higher melting point than glass. It was used in thicker layers in like furnaces and things, so you could see whether the pilot light was burning or other stuff. Obviously, we've replaced that with borosilicate glasses that have crazy high melting points. But yeah, that transparency has been a really important quality, and I've seen photos of old buildings with very tiny windows made out of little books of mica, they call them, because they look like the pages in a book.
That's awesome. And the other thing is, I'm so glad you mentioned that the name lepidolite comes from scale stone. So lepidos for scales and lithos for stone. And I have this beautiful polished gemmy piece here that looks so much like dragon scales. And I love this. Dragon scales are fish scales, but it actually sits on my altar in a little dish with my Avalon stone dragon head carving. So this one just always kind of reminds me of that. But that made me very happy. And then, Nicholas, one thing you were talking about also is the associated minerals that we find in these pegmatites with the lepidolite. So we see the tourmalines and lots of other things. So I'm sure so many folks out there have seen these combinations. So here's a rough piece of that lepidolite or that mica with some pink tourmaline in it. And there are so many different ways that you'll see this. Sometimes you'll see like the most beautiful, brilliant, gemmy, fully formed tourmaline crystals growing right through the mica, and it looks so pretty, or just studded in that pegmatite. But a lot of folks are calling this particular combination unicorn stone. And I think one of our, like, I know probably most of us know, Jean, amazing Jean K, was just telling me she heard that it was also called dreamstone, like before unicorn stone became a name. And I had never heard of that one. But before we started recording, the three of us were talking a little bit about how the lepidolite group sort of gets and other micas have really uh, been, I don't know the right word. I don't want, oh, I'm going to change what I was going to say there. They have all gotten some fanciful trade names, some really interesting trade names. And we see a number of them out there for all different varieties of this stone. But the unicorn stone one for me bothers me personally. I get most people kind of know what that is now, but I feel like our names give us some common language to use. And this is the biggest problem with trade names, right? Is that sometimes we lose the common language. It's just like when we're talking about plants too, right? You can say something is a daisy, and that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It doesn't really tell you exactly what it is or where it comes from. And even though Nicholas has told us about the complicated sort of mineralogical determination of lepidolite, most of us in the healy-feely world of crystals, when we say lepidolite, we kind of know what we're talking about. But when we use these other names like unicorn stone or maybe dreamstone, there's a little bit of a question mark. And so often I'll have customers come into my shop and ask for unicorn stone. And of course I know what they mean because I'm keeping with it. But we always call it lepidolite with inclusions of pink tourmaline and sometimes these albites or smoky quartzes or whatever. And it's a lot more to write on a label in the shop, but we do that because I feel like I really want people to know what it is they're working with in those components. But I would love to know, like, Kyle, what is your experience with this? How do you feel about some of these names coming in?
Well, interestingly, coming from Western Australia, we have quite an interesting perspective. We have one of the largest lithium deposits in the world, and it's been mined quite heavily at the moment. And over here, it's just pegmatites. It's literally just pegmatites with XYZ. And you would never see unicorn stone unless it's in a crystal healy feely shop. It's just, you won't see it here. Otherwise, it's in there. And that's something that I think is really important. We're a mining state first. So, mineralogically speaking, that's where you will come from. That's where I got this piece of blue lepidolite that actually comes from the local pegmatite of the mines that is currently being dealt with and taken care of as they are. This is from the same place, so different with a little bit of the quartz. And then I even have, this is another really beautiful piece, and this has the albite through the top carved into an egg. Excuse me for flipping you off. There is, I would say, 4 years ago, 5 years ago was the first time I saw it. And I was like, huh, what's happening? And Dreamstone confuses me so much more because there's at least 2 or 3 other stones that are called Dream something, right? There's Epidote in quartz, which is Dream quartz. There's Dream Amethyst, which is Chevron Amethyst. There's like, I've heard Girasol refers to as like a Dream quartz. Like, let's not go with trade names as much as possible. If it helps to differentiate, it's great. And when you're starting, absolutely. But these things are at their source so much more complex.
Yeah, and I just want to underscore that, like, even in the scientific world, people are still using the word lepidolite because it's a field ID term. Because you're going to look at two of these sparkly pink purple rocks and go, well, it's a lithium pegmatite, so therefore it is in the polylithionite or trilithionite series, but we can't tell by looking at it. And so lepidolite still has value in that way that, we see things like hornblende still in use, even though that is not a valid mineral species. And, epidote we use as a catch-all name for the epidote series. And I feel like if we're already using kind of an umbrella term, we probably don't need to keep reinventing the wheel, because it does harm our credibility, and it causes so much confusion because who's going to stop someone else from using the same trade name for a different rock?
That's also a really valid point, and that gets super complicated when that happens. Someone was asking me at the shop today for moon agate. I'd never heard of that. And I'm like, okay, there's a new one, there's a new one. And I looked it up, and the only thing I could find is that it looks like somebody just mistyped moss agate as moon agate because they must have just had like moon on the brain, or maybe they like really typoed and it auto-corrected somehow to moon, or who knows what. But I was like, oh, nope, looks like what you want is moss agate based on what I'm seeing. So, like, we need to be a little careful too, right? And we need to, yeah, do our best. Just do our best. Like Nicholas was saying, we might not be able to get to the very, very specific correct type of lepidolite, but lepidolite will do as a term. Like serpentine, too. The serpentine is not just one type of mineral; it's a whole mineral group, and we just can't know. So we'll do our best. Um,
And let's also add getting lost in translation, right? So many of these things come from places where English is not their first language, right? And they're taking from English to make sense into whatever place it's coming from. And so we have to then hold space for that sort of stuff happening, right? It is not all coming directly from, the United States, Australia, England, all of these, Western England, English speaking countries. They're actually coming from completely different places, and we have to understand that too.
yeah, like how many times I can't even tell you that I've been, just like poking around on Etsy or whatever, looking for whatever I'm looking for, and I'll see red jasper quartz, uh, bumblebee quartz, or like garnet quartz, like just the word quartz on the end of everything to mean like just a crystal or a stone, I guess. Or the same thing with the word jasper or with the word jade, right? Like it'll be like garnet jade or um yeah, blue quartz jade. And it's like clear that's not what that doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of interesting, but that gets confusing for people too. So just yeah, kind of working with the same sort of toolbox and toolkit is helpful. Kyle, I wanted to kind of turn things over to you because you have some experience with lepidolite, helping to kind of slow things down a little bit. And I think some of what Nicholas was saying earlier really kind of relates to that energy, but I'd love to hear your perspective on this stone.
Absolutely. And I want to start by saying I'm not a medical professional, but I think of lithium lepidolite as crystalline Prozac. For me, it is just that take a breath, chill out, and remember that everything going on around you isn't you. Like big lepidolite energy is necessary for me. I like to have something big that I can hold and stop with, especially when I need to stop. But it has been this constant reminder since I started connecting with crystals to, um, as you kind of referred to, Ashley, peel back the layers. And Nicholas showed us it's like working through those layers. We're able to see the first thing and the next thing and the next thing. But it's for me, it's about everything not controlling how I feel, not controlling how I react, not controlling how I'm going to um, not react to certain things or react to certain things, right? It's sometimes it's actually about not doing anything. Sometimes it's actually about really listening to what's happening around you and taking everything in and being aware that maybe you're feeling all of that. Maybe it's everything building up. Maybe it's all of the stuff that you haven't been dealing with. Maybe it's all of the noise. Maybe you started the day really badly and now at midday, you're just like, you're done because things are built up layer by layer by layer. So what if you stop and breathe? And that's been a big one for me, is remembering to breathe and breathe deeply and breathe properly. Breathe with your diaphragm, right? When we get caught up, when we get busy, like we get short of breath, we get all of those feelings come up. And it's that reminder that everything runs in this human body on breath and how we're able to regulate. And so by regulating yourself, by stopping, you can get through and work through stuff so much better, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, whether it's a stressful day. Enabled me to kind of remember that I am not my feelings. I am not the world around me. I'm not all of my stress. I'm not everyone else's stress. I am not all of the bad things happening out there in the world. And it has slowed me down so many times. Like this piece was one of the first pieces that I got at probably 12 years ago. And I love that it's polished on one side and rough on the other. It allows me to, especially when you are like many of us, neurodiverse or highly stressed, you actually need something tactile and tangible to bring you back to earth and bring you back into yourself. Like that legitimacy of touch, sight, touch, sound, like using your senses to reconnect to yourself. Like it's everything. And it's the one crystal for me that really taps into that, that really allows me to do that.
Kyle, let me ask you, do you think that it has this effect for you because it's like bringing your focus and attention more into the present moment? Like, is it more like a mental aspect thing, or is it like getting you more into your body, get like engaging those senses that are helping you just, um, I guess, get out of your head and into your body? So is it like cultivating and harnessing that mental sort of clarity and awareness, or is it just getting you out of that headspace and into your body?
For me, it's almost like being someone of Mediterranean descent, I can get very emotional, very strongly heated very quickly. And like for me, it's like running to like go do something and your friend grabbing your shoulders and going, stop, take a second. You don't want to go to jail for this. Like, that like is it worth going to jail over? It's a really great thing to remind yourself of, because you know what? It's not. It's totally, totally not. And it is, it can be for me abrupt in a good way. Like it's cold always for me until you warm it up. Like, so it's going to like shock me, especially into calming down. But I've also seen it work in a really beautiful, soft way, especially in regards to heightened emotions and grief with my nephew. I was babysitting not long after my father passed, and this is all very timely because this episode comes out on the anniversary of my father's passing, 4 years. And we were babysitting them, having them over for a sleepover a year or so afterwards. And my eldest nephew expressed was how he was feeling, all of those deep emotions. It all came up, and he was like really, really heightened. And I remember just being drawn. I was like, a lepidolite tower about this size. I gave it to him and I just said, just breathe. I get it. I get it. I understand. And we spent a long time, probably about an hour, talking, helping him to just calm himself. And then I put him to bed and I watched him sleep. And he held this tightly and he woke up in the morning and he was like, thank you. It helped me sleep. And he went to give it back and I was like, it's yours now. Like, it's not mine. It is absolutely yours now. And it's that for anyone, child, adult, doesn't matter where you are. I have seen it literally work on. And it's not going to be as immediate as we'd like it to be sometimes. It does take time and it can take a bit of support. It can need a little bit of that, but I've seen the evidence of it also just handing a piece to a child walking around my mom's crystal shop when they're like really excited, and within 5-10 minutes they're chill and they're like, okay, now I'm ready to just look at stuff. And it's sort of, it can bring all of us just back down into where we need to be, mind and body and emotion. And we can actually figure out what we need to do. Figure out, as Nicholas said, where we need to start. Like sometimes we don't have to figure out the right thing. It's literally just about starting. And that's why I also highly recommend it as a meditation tool. Like if you really struggle with doing that sort of work, and I'll show off one really cute one. As you mentioned, like when you get the pretty tourmaline on the crystalline lepidolite, this piece comes from Brazil and it's actually watermelon. You can't see it as well as I would like you to see, but it's so, so juicy. And it has this, came from Adam, BT dubs. It has this reminder when we have the tourmaline, bring that lens of love into things, bring that lens of like, the world can be beautiful. The world isn't always horrible. And when you tap into loving yourself and breathing all of the other stuff out, I think it really should surpass so many other crystals in your collection or on your to get list if you don't already have it, because it just has such a wonderful energy for so many of us, especially nowadays, right? Especially in today's world.
I love that. And for the meditation aspect, um, do you think this would be one for people who are looking for more of that like clearing or emptying of the mind type meditation? Or is it more about sort of like a grounded, anchored, rooting in kind of meditation? Like, I,
Yes. The
yes.
answer is yes. Like for me, I have used it when I've done like walking meditations, just going for a walk somewhere out in nature. I've used it when I need to stop and slow down and do like sound healing work. I've used it in days when I need to remember that like each step is a meditation. Like I've used it in so many different contexts. And I think whatever context you need to meditate with it should work.
I love that. I love that. I'm really finding a lot of overlap in, I think, the story that we're sort of weaving together about this stone. For me, this is one I've always turned to when I've been feeling a lot of worry, where your mind and your heart just feel full and overwhelmed and overburdened. That, my mom used to tell me, I mean, from the time I was little, that I had a way of letting things snowball, and she's not incorrect. So, it starts little, but as that snowball rolls down the hill, it picks up speed and volume. So when I feel myself starting to let things snowball, this is the stone that I reach for probably 7 or 8 times out of 10. And I love to hold it, take a few deep breaths, sort of like Kyle was saying. But I also really have a number of other stones that I like to pair with my lepidolite to bring in like these different subtle qualities. So when I really want to lean into that nurturing aspect, like Nicholas was talking about, I'll pair it with some peach or white moonstone. So bringing in those sort of feldspars, like that makes me feel like it's that nurturing, supportive, loving quality, like where you just sort of feel held and cared for. Sometimes when we're feeling worried or overwhelmed, we just don't feel safe. We feel like we don't have that support or that foundation. So this combination for me really helps move me into that space mentally where I can kind of let my guard down and then, like Kyle said, take that deep breath and that big exhale and just feel that sense of relief. But sometimes it's almost like that worry gets all sped up and everything feels like it's going a million miles a minute and you are spinning out of control and you can't like get your thoughts quite straight. When I'm feeling like that, I like to pair the lepidolite with aquamarine, something that's really cooling and helps sort of release and let go and just empty some of those thoughts out of my head. And my favorite practice when I'm really in that space, and this usually happens if maybe I've procrastinated a project or two or 10 and there's just way more than I can get done by the time I really need to get it done. I'll reach for that lepidolite and that aquamarine. I'll hold them for a little bit. I'll give myself about 30 seconds to think through all the things I need to do. And then on a blank sheet of paper, I just brain dump everything that's in my head, every little tiny minute task, every big project, anything that's just, as they say, living rent free up there. You got to get it out. And so I get it onto paper so that I don't have to carry it around up here anymore. And I feel like the stones really help facilitate that process. I'll just sort of hold one in one hand as like a fidget as I sort of write and just get everything down on paper. I might switch it up and reach for the aquamarine, take a few deep breaths when I'm done, process, and just sort of read through that list. And I'll usually set a timer for this and just I like to cap it at 5 minutes. You'd be surprised. Usually after about 2 minutes, all the big things are out, but I give myself that extra few minutes just to see if anything else is rattling around up there. And then I at least know, okay, here's everything I have to do. And then it's very much a process like what Nicholas was talking about. What's the very first step? When I look at these, I'll immediately cross off anything that's unimportant. Like, okay, that's in there, it's living up there, but is it actually important or does it actually have to get done right now? Nope, I'm just gonna cross that off the list. Like, okay, it's there. Thank you, brain, for telling me maybe I need to think about that in the future, but it's not the time. And then I'll look at what's left and just pick one thing. I might not even pick the most important thing. Sometimes it'll just be an easy thing for that little bit of dopamine, that little easy win, and then go from there. Yeah, pat yourself on the back a little bit because you got something done exactly. And just feel like, okay, now I can sort of move forward. But sometimes we feel the overwhelm because we're not giving ourselves the space that we need to just think through everything that we have to do or everything that's going on. And this works not just with a to-do list, but also with sometimes just processing emotions, right? So sometimes you feel that sense of overwhelm because you don't exactly know how you feel. So instead of a list of to-dos or tasks, it's more like a list of feelings. Okay, well, why am I feeling this way? And really examining that and reflecting on that. Where is this feeling coming from? And giving yourself that space to figure it out. 'Cause sometimes we don't know. And when we have that aha moment and we figure it out, it's so much easier to work through it in whatever way we need to do that. And that's also a place where that aquamarine sort of paired with the lepidolite, I find really, really helpful. And then my favorite pairing, probably of them all, is one that I don't work with as often, but there's like a time and a place, and that is pairing lepidolite with rhodonite. So sometimes what I need more than anything is just a clean slate. I think sometimes the overwhelm also just comes from, at least for myself, like sometimes like feelings of inadequacy, like you can't get everything done or you didn't do it perfectly or whatever the thing is that you kind of tell yourself, even on a subconscious level. But I love working with rhodonite for new beginnings. And when you kind of pair that with this soft, nurturing energy of lepidolite and let yourself, like, give yourself permission to just wipe the slate clean, like, okay, you know what? It doesn't matter that maybe I didn't say exactly the right thing in that conversation, or maybe it doesn't matter that I didn't do this thing in the exact way that I wish I would have. I'm just gonna wipe the slate clean on my worry and start fresh because you know what? We're all humans and we all get to do that. And it helps you just hold a little compassion for yourself, have that release, and have that time to let it go so that you can feel like you're in a space where you can move forward. Like you don't have to take it with you.
I've just pieced together with what you've said, with what Nicholas was referring to it as a book. It's like, what story are we telling ourselves? Like, what is our story? What page are we going to peel off? Right? Throw it away, turn it to glitter, right? Lepidolite, the stone of the story.
I love that. Yes. Any other insight that comes to mind about that? Because I can totally see so much there to be explored about, yeah, what stories we are telling ourselves.
So I had a friend who always referred to lepidolite as the grandmother stone for no other reason than it felt like a hug from grandma. But and I reference that in my discussion of this stone and Stones of the Goddess, and I'm like having an aha moment about how the grandmothers are the wisdom keepers, the storytellers, the tradition holders in families and societies and communities. And eventually we all become elders. No matter what we write on the page now, it feels like Lepidolite is inviting us to take wisdom from that so the next generation can learn. Because the outcome is the same, right? Whether you pop off or you take the deep breath, you're still going to tell the next generation to take the deep breath. So it's like Lepidolite helps us integrate the moral of the story in the present moment.
Yeah, act upon those lessons, act upon that wisdom now, like be able to really embody it.
How-to guide, right? Like, this is how you do it. And the do as I say, not as I do thing. I think we can all relate to that. Learn
Absolutely.
from my mistakes. I mean, learn from my mistakes.
Oh, oh my goodness. Okay, such a beautiful stone. I'd love to like just because I shared a couple of my favorite lepidolite companions, ask the two of you if there are any stones in particular that you've enjoyed pairing together with lepidolite in the past.
Yeah, I mean there are lots. I think we've got some overlap. I'm wearing my rhodonite right now, so as you were talking about rhodonite and lepidolite, that's a natural combination for me. It's one that I really enjoy. I often take a lot of inspiration about like mineral companions as they form. So tourmalines are a great companion to lepidolite. Quartzes are a great companion to lepidolite. The feldspars, also like you're mentioning, were a great companion to lepidolite. I have this one kind of weird, semi-ugly quartz crystal. And I say semi-ugly because it's obviously sustained some damage, but it's so weird and charming, and it's covered in some unconventional things. And I think it by itself is the combination stone I've been coming to quite a lot for lepidolite. So we've got our kind of golden lepidolite and real gemmy dark green, and some of them are dark pink tourmalines. But when I turn it over, it has this sparkly shield of euhedral rose quartz, more or less, right over like the heart like the chest of the crystal. That like gemmy rose quartz plus lepidolite just feels so transformative, and not just like, transparent anhedral, but when you get the stuff that forms crystal faces, it actually is a different chemistry than other rose quartz. It is more sensitive to light and radiation and other things. But that is one that I find to be really, we'll say, a dynamic catalyst for compassion. Combining any form of lepidolite with that will really help you reflect on maybe why you're not choosing compassion in some instances, whether that's directed inwards or outwards. I find it to be like a real stirring the silt up from the bottom of the pond kind of energy, because if we don't do that, we can't dredge the bottom. We don't know how deep it goes. And that's something that I've been working with lately.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I
I
love
love
it.
it.
Oh, yeah, my favorites kind of are in a similar vein. One is one that forms. I've got my lepidolite from WA, and behind me, oh, right there, that one is a piece of kunzite from the same pegmatite. And I pair them together, and it is like compassion, self love. Like it really brings a level of just waves of self love that I find extraordinary to work with, and really buoyant in the way it makes me feel. My other combination is smoky quartz. I'll use smoky quartz and lepidolite outside, especially walking or sitting in the yard or going out somewhere in nature, to help me to like really let go of what I need to let go of, so I can feel good. Grab this one, grab this one in each hand, and I'll go for a walk. Actually, I would probably have them pointing downwards when I walk. I actually So that they're directing the energy into the earth to be sent away and be transmuted into something more positive. I think that's a nice combination to work with, and easy too.
I love that. Thank you both for those like little extra companion crystals to, inspire everyone at home to work with. So I want to just say thank you so much to everyone who's tuning in. If you have a companion stone that you like to pair with lepidolite, drop it in the comments below. Let us know why you like to pair those two crystals together. And we will see you back for another episode next week when Adam will return and we will have the four of us back together again to continue to confab about our crystals. Thanks so much for joining us today. Until we see you next time, blessed be.